All right, we are live. Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Reverend Ann Russ. I'm gonna make a few diaconus announcements before we start in with our talk with Ann. So, diaconus has some exciting things going on this spring. We are actually looking at launching our second round of doctoral scholarships for women pursuing DMin studies. I received comments from our first three recipients, which we will be sharing this spring, and it is truly profound, the impact that these scholarships have made on these women's lives. So my ask is, if you know a woman who's completed their first year of doctoral studies, please connect them with Diakonos Solutions so that they can apply for our scholarships. We'll release those in May, with scholarships being awarded in August, early September, with tuition payments. And look for these comments that these women have made, that the importance of receiving these scholarships. Also, we are launching Stories Behind the Stoles. Again, for women who are newly ordained, it is expensive to be ordained and get all the gear. And so we are trying to connect women who have either retired or aren't necessarily using some of the stoles they might have received earlier in their career, and connect those stoles with women who are newly ordained and trying to build their stole wardrobe. So if you have a stole that you would like to donate, please message me. If you would like to receive a stole, if you are a newly ordained woman, and I think we have that the first 3 to 5 years, I'll have to check. We have a form for you to fill out. It's really easy, and we're trying to get people connected with stoles that may be sitting in the back of the closet with women who could use those stoles. I think that's it. That's it for right now. All right. I want to welcome Ann Russ. Ann and I were colleagues in ministry in the Presbytery of Arkansas for more years than probably either of us would like to admit. And Ann is now in New York City, and she is pastor of Doubting Believer. She created Doubting Believer, an online platform, years before any of us thought ministry was a thing online. And so I wanted to invite her today to share her story about Doubting Believer, and share her insights about online ministry and pastoring with people virtually. So, Ann, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'd like to start with Doubting Believer. I'd like you to share how you created Doubting Believer, but also maybe your welcome. Can you share your welcome and how Doubting Believer came to be?
Yeah. Yes, the whole welcome. So I always, anytime I start a worship service, and I've done this since I first started in ministry, is say a welcome. And it's the same welcome every Sunday. And it is welcome to this church. Welcome if you are worshiping with us for the first time. Welcome if you've been here many times. And welcome if you have been worshiping here your entire life. Welcome to young and old, and to all races and ethnicities. Welcome to singles and to couples and to families of all shapes and sizes. Welcome to believers and to doubters, and a special welcome to doubting believers. Welcome if your heart is happy, and welcome if it is weighed down with sadness. Welcome if your entire being is bursting with gratitude, and welcome if it feels as though something is trying to suck the life right out of you. Welcome if you've got it all together, and welcome if you are in danger of falling apart at any moment. Whoever you are and whatever brought you here today, know that this is God's house. Come and worship just the way you are, because everyone is welcome here. So I say that at the beginning of every worship service. And I had so many people respond to that saying, especially people who were nervous about coming to church and maybe grew up feeling like you had to be in a certain headspace and you had to be feeling holy and centered in order to worship. And people would say how much they appreciated permission to have landed there, just barely have gotten the kids out of the door, in clothes that were weather appropriate, much less matched. And by the time they plop on the pews, they felt anything but worshipful. And that gave them permission to just. But the thing I got the most feedback about was the part about doubting believer. And so many people said, oh, that's what I am. I never knew how to say that. That's exactly what I am. And that it was okay to be a doubting believer, that doubt was not the opposite of faith, that doubt was a part of faith. So when I got ready to do something online, I decided I would call it Doubting Believer, to let more and more people know, hey, this is a perfectly legitimate, faithful Christian thing to be, a doubting believer. So that's where the name came from.
That's an amazing welcome, and amazing that you can just, obviously this is very much a part of you, because
the best part is the kids who grew up in the last church I served, they can tell you, they can do the welcome because they've heard it so many times.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, there are some teenagers in Arkansas who can spout you that welcome on cue.
Oh, wow. All right. Any viewers from Arkansas Presbys? This needs to be done at a youth quake. That's just a shout out to our Arkansas friends. All right. So it was interesting when you told me, how did Doubting Believer begin? You had the name, but how did this online platform emerge as part of your ministry?
Well, I was doing a blog for the church I was serving in North Little Rock. Part of our website, I did a blog. And as the blog was evolving, I decided that probably needed to be something separate, like the things that I was talking about, whereas the church might not have disagreed with me. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that this was me talking and these were not the views of the church, whereas the blog for the church needed to be more like, here's what we're doing, and here are our missions, and here are ways you can engage in ministry through our church. So I moved my blog to a separate space that you could link to from the church's website. And I called it Doubting Believer. And so I started doing a blog separately to talk about issues, theology issues, things that would come up, in Bible studies, questions people would come up with. And I'd realize that other people had these questions to try to address, and to just give people permission to be where they are in their faith journey. And I realized that a lot of people were not getting that. People were being really called out by pastors when they asked questions. People were made to feel like, because anything from being divorced to loving somebody who is the same gender as they are, to, honestly asking the wrong questions, were being asked to leave, or being told that they needed to toe the line and become the person the church wanted them to be a part of that church. So there were just a lot of people who needed to hear, you can be a good and faithful Christian and disagree with things that are happening in your particular group of believers.
Yeah. So you were in full-time congregational ministry, and then you transitioned to being online with Doubting Believer as your new ministry.
Right. Yeah. My husband got a job in New York, and I thought, you know what, this is a time. I've been in congregational ministry for about 15 years. And I thought this is a good time to just kind of take a break. Let's not dive right back into, congregational new place. My daughter was headed off to college. We were moving to a new place. I thought this would be a good time to take a beat. And I thought, well, let me just play with this Doubting Believer and see what we can do with online ministry. What might this look like? And this was pre-pandemic. Then the pandemic hit about 6 months after we moved here. So it was great to already have that online platform. And it was also great to be able to kind of help and assist other churches as they had to scramble, as you know, oh so quickly, to get online. So it was nice to be able to go, oh yeah, here's how you can do this. So that was really a nice thing to be able to do.
So can you share a little bit, since you were online pre-pandemic, can you share kind of your experiences of because even being online, you had to transition. So what was it like for you a little bit pre-pandemic, and then how have you transitioned through the pandemic in that online space?
Yeah. I've tried a lot of things that have worked and a lot of things that haven't. And also the thing about the online space is what works one day may not work the next. But the good thing is you're online and it's so much easier to pivot than in a brick and mortar church. So I started out, one of the things we did when I started trying to offer ways for people to connect, I did some classes. I offer some free classes, some paid classes, created various Facebook groups around either classes or times of year. I had a great thing that was very popular right before the pandemic, the November before the pandemic. We did gratitude on the move, which was an idea of put what you're thankful for and then respond. Because as good Presbyterians, we know we live in grateful response to God's love. So don't just say, wow, I'm grateful for my good health. I'm grateful for my good health. So I'm going to check on somebody who's not enjoying such good health today. Or I'm grateful I have plenty to eat, so I'm going to donate some food to my local women's shelter. So there was always something you did in response. And so we had a Facebook group of over 500 people who were sharing. So things like that worked really well. And then what was it? Once the pandemic hit, it wasn't gratitude on the move. Grateful while grounded. The next year, we were in the midst of the pandemic, so we did grateful while grounded and how we could express gratitude when we were stuck at home. So things like that worked really well. I will say that we were doing some Zoom classes. We were doing Zoom Bible study, some Zoom classes. And once the pandemic hit, for me, those went downhill quick because now everybody had to be on Zoom all the time, especially people who were working on Zoom all day long. The last thing they wanted to do then was log back onto Zoom and do a Bible study that night. So my Zoom things went away. I'm not completely away, but certainly. And I'm finding right now that what people really want in terms of studies or guidance is something they can download, a digital download that they can download, that they can go and do at their own pace. So one of the things I do is when people do download things, I can look on my platform and see how far people have gotten on certain things. And I can go, hey, you walked away from this. Hey, maybe it's time to come back, depending on how I set them up. So, and then to provide places like a Facebook group or a weekly opt-in Zoom call that people, if they want to connect, they can. I'm finding that is really right now. Come again in 3 months and we'll see. But right now, giving some people something that they can have in their hands or on their screens to learn from, to interact with, and giving them a chance, if they would like, to connect with people online via online groups, via Zooms from time to time. That seems to be working the best right now.
So is this a good place to maybe have you share about Gentle Lent? Is
right now
Lent part of this?
Right now I'm doing a Gentle Lent. As we were coming into Lent, I really struggled with this. Everybody's so tired. And this is even before the war started in the Ukraine. Everybody was just already tired and overwhelmed. And so the idea of saying, okay, we're going to do a daily this, and that just seemed like not a good thing to do for Lent this year. And as I have pointed out in several videos I've made recently, the point of giving up something for Lent is not so you can say I'm hardcore and I am so devoted and pious that I can do this. The idea was that what are those things in your life that are blocking you from being closer to God? What are the obstacles in your life? And if that means you turn to chocolate instead of to God, yeah, maybe chocolate is something you should try to give up, or a glass of wine every night, and instead of. Maybe those are things to give up for Lent, but that is the reason for giving something up, is to draw closer to God, not so that you can say, look how hardcore Christian I am. And so the idea, I started to notice through something else I was doing, that every major religion and most cultures have this concept that true strength is found in gentleness. You can find quotes from people in every major religion. You can find it in cultural ideals that real strength comes through the ability to be gentle. And so I thought, oh, that's such a great thing we could do for Lent, is how to be gentle with yourself. Oh, and that's the other part. That part of that is learning to be gentle with yourself before you can be that for other people, which is also, in line with our Christian thinking about that we have to love ourselves before we can love other people. So I thought, great, we'll do a gentle Lent. And then I started, okay, so every day, and I'm like, wait, that's not gentle. If we So I kind of created this guide of different ways that you can be gentle with yourself, and also think about how you are being gentle with other people. And the idea is that is throughout Lent, you will work through this guide. Maybe some of these are growing edges for you and things you need to work on. Maybe some of these just don't address you or fit in with you at all, and that's okay. So we do have a Facebook group that goes with that, where we can try. I'm asking some questions, people are chiming in, and we are going to do an opt-in weekly Zoom at different times. I put out the schedule at the beginning of the week and say this week's Zoom is going to be this time, because people are coming in from all different time zones. People are coming in from all different careers. So rather than try to say every Wednesday at 8:00 Eastern, we're going to Zoom, each week it's going to be at a different time. Mm-hmm. So hopefully everybody who wants to will be able to find ways to engage with the Zoom. So that's what we're doing for Lent. And so far it's going really well. We have about 50 people who are participating. I think about 35 of them are on the Facebook group. Of course, not everybody does Facebook, but yeah, so it started off really well. I'm feeling, I hope everybody's feeling a little more gentle towards themselves and others already.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so we are actually, stay tuned. At the end of our conversation, we are going to tell you how you can have the opportunity to receive an entrance into receive a gentle Lent.
Yeah, the cost for a gentle Lent is just $9.99, but we're going to give away a couple for free. Mm-hmm. And so you can stay tuned and learn how to do that. And it's not too late, because it is a gentle Lent and it's not a daily thing. So it is a process you can enter into anytime. So you wouldn't be coming late to the table on this.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure that we hit this, because I've got 3 pages of notes and questions. And we can't do all of that. Ann and I talked earlier, and our conversation went well over an hour. And so, but understanding that people might have things to do today besides, but you have a really unique view of, it's no longer unique. You were unique pre-COVID, but why it's important for the church to have an online presence. And, you hit on some of that with how you create a doubting believer, but can you share a little bit about, why this is important and,
Well, it's all, we always say we want to reach people where they are, and people are on their phones. So if you are not on, if your church, if your ministry is not on people's phones, you are missing where they are 80% of the time right now. That's probably an exaggeration, but not by much.
Not by much.
And so it's something that I really pushed before the pandemic, and I thought the pandemic would solve this problem in making digital ministry a priority rather than an afterthought. And what I'm seeing is that it's just adding one more thing to the plates of already overworked church staff. And online ministry in so many places is still an afterthought if we have time. Instead of looking at everything in ministry as a whole and saying, you know what, this thing we've been doing for years, we're going to let that go because it's not really relevant. It's not really reaching people right now. And so we're going to focus that energy and make our online presence more of a priority, because that is how you are going to reach people. So if we're really serious about reaching people with the good news of the gospel, we have to have an online presence. And if that means letting go of something else, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is really okay. So I just think, and I do have some resources at Doubting Believer for churches on how to create content and how to do that. But it really does take somebody to be intentional and pay attention to it. And it can make such a huge difference in the reach you have for your church and your ability to share your message with more people.
Yeah.
Which is what we all want to do.
Absolutely. And in fact, earlier this year, you posted that you were going to let go of a ministry.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you tell us about that? I mean, because that's a tangible, in an online space, that's a tangible reminder that ministry changes. You know, there are different seasons for different things.
Well, this was something I started, I think, almost from the time I started Doubting Believer as its own separate thing. Maybe not at the very beginning, but I did something called Feel Good Friday. And I would find good news that was happening, videos, news stories, podcast things, and I would curate 4 or 5 things every Friday, just to remind people that no matter what else is happening, there are good people doing good things in the world. And it kind of became a spiritual discipline for me. And there would be weeks when it was really hard to find something good to say and to find good news, and you would have to dig deep, but it was there. But I just started noticing as I was tracking my stats, which you should do on your social media and your blogs to find out what's working and what's not. I noticed that over the last year, which I thought was interesting, as the world got worse, fewer and fewer people were looking at the Feel Good Friday. And it just was not something people were engaging with anymore. And even though I like doing it, it was taking up a big chunk of my time every week. Some weeks more than others. But yeah, it was and I thought, why? I mean, if I want to continue this as a spiritual discipline for myself, am I realizing that I'm sacrificing time I could be using to reach more people? And so I just said, you know what? I've done it. I think it was almost 4 years, and I never missed a Friday, every Friday for 4 years. And so it was really hard to let that streak go. I mean, even when, no matter what was going on, I would do that. And I thought, it's no longer reaching people really. People were not interacting with it. People were not engaging with it. And so now what I do instead is on my Facebook and on my Instagram, I do a five things to do this weekend every Friday. And it just is 5 things to help you engage with God, to help you engage with your community, to make your life a little better. 5 things that you can do this weekend. And that has become hugely popular. And so many people engage with it and comment on it and give suggestions and pass it along on their Facebook pages. So it was such a good choice on my part to let go of this thing I had been doing for so long and start something new.
So one of the things that you really drove home in our conversation was the difference between reach and engagement.
Yes.
Can you, and that is, I mean, for all church people, I mean, the simplest way to say this is you may have 1,000 people on your rolls, but if only 20 people show up in church, how many people do you have? And so can you share about reach and engagement, especially in the online, in the online area?
Yeah, on your Facebook, Instagram, TikToks, however you are engaging with people, everybody wants to have more likes, more followers, which is great. You do want a following, but paying attention simply to how many people are following you. You can have a bazillion people following you and only a handful of people actually engaging with your content. And that is what you want to be tracking. You want to be tracking not how many people liked your page, maybe not even how many people liked a post, but how many people shared it, how many people commented on it. Because first of all, those are the 2 things that will also increase the number of people who see it. The commenting and the sharing are the things that bump you up in the algorithm and have more people see it. But those are the people you're actually reaching. are the people who take the time to engage with your content. So if you only have 50 followers on Facebook, but 40 of them are regularly engaging with what you're putting out there, then you have created a really great community. If you have 1,000 followers and only like 15 or 20 are actually engaging, then you have a lot of people who you just have a like on your page and you're not really reaching that many people. So take heart. Small churches with small Facebook followings, you don't need a large following, you need an engaged following.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. I mean, that's gold right there and all of us have been doing online ministry in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's encouragement and it's a balm because, I mean, just like you get so caught up in the numbers that you forget.
It's so easy. It's so easy. And I see people doing, provocative posts, to get people like riled up and those are great. I am all for those to get people talking and all that. And it will boost numbers, but they're not people who are actually engaged in your ministry.
Yeah.
It can bump up likes, it can bump up people who are connecting with you, but little things to kind of poke at people and prod them a little bit, that's not going to up your deeply engaged people.
Yeah. So as we're getting close to the end of our time, I think I'd like to ask you. I think I had, where do you see? What do you see as next steps for the church and ministry online?
I think churches are going to be doing double duty, which I know nobody wants to hear, but I do think we will have that in-person, online community is never going to replace in-person community. But I think the online community is important for the church, for those people who are never going to come to church, there are so many reasons people are not going to come into church, that have to do with everything from mobility issues to previous experiences with the church. So there's those people, and we certainly want to reach them. Mm-hmm. I think it is going to give way to seeing online as our best onboarding, remembering how nerve-wracking it can be for people to come into church for the first time. If they have already connected with you online, if they've been in your services that way, if they've connected with people, so much easier for them to show up for a fellowship supper or for worship. Mm-hmm. And I also think it's going to hopefully move us away from the idea that church has to happen on Sunday morning at 10:30, or 11 o'clock, because fewer and fewer people are actually able to make that happen in their lives. And this idea that is the sacrosanct, holy time for worship to happen, I'm really hoping that goes away. Not that Sunday worship goes away, but the idea that that's the only time it can happen, that needs to go away. There's just too many people that does not work for. And that means we are counting out and alienating an entire, many entire segments of the population.
Yeah. No, that's information that the church needs to hear and continues to need to hear, that, butts in the pew at 11 a.m. on Sunday, just,
and if you can't make that happen, you're not a good Christian.
Then you're not. Yeah. No. And offering ways to engage in all aspects of life. And you're right. I mean, no one is out of the house without their phone. So, you're
not on their phone, you're not reaching them.
Yeah. All right. So as we look at concluding our time today, I'd like to thank you, Anne, for your generous time and sharing of your wisdom, your online wisdom with people. Definitely connect with Doubting Believer. She puts out excellent stuff. I've been following her for years. And to share or to be eligible to receive a gentle Lent, we're asking that you comment and tag someone. If you'd like to do, Diakonos is going to throw in, and a Doubting Believer is throwing in. So if you want to go through a gentle Lent with someone, you know, comment and tag them, share this video with someone, and, you know, we're going to give you 24 hours so that you can get started on your gentle Lent as soon as this weekend. I will contact people. Once again, I am grateful for this online platform. This is our third episode. Our first episode started in Lincoln, Nebraska, with a pastor there. And then we went to Houston, Texas. Ann is in New York City. And next month we go to Grove, Oklahoma. So we are,
Awesome.
it's amazing that we get to share and, you know, hear from women in all aspects of ministry and ministry lives. This is what a woman in ministry looks like. You
Well,
know,
I appreciate you having me. This is great. I love this platform, and I love how you're lifting up women in ministry.
yeah. All right. So again, comment, tag, share. We'll get you entered into a gentle Lent drawing, and we'll see you next month. Our next month's broadcast is on April 8th. April 8th. And we'll set out a time. Look for our promos on that. And thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
We wish everyone a gentle Lent.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.